Hi, everyone. Welcome to the launch of Growth in Small Gestures by Cleopatria Peterson. I'm so glad that you're here with us this evening. My name is Tally Veron. I'm the founder and publisher at the Soapbox Press, and I'm so excited to be your host tonight. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that although we're gathering in a virtual space, the Soapbox Press rests on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We encourage you to learn the history of the land you are currently on as we reflect on the past and acknowledge the changes that can be made going forward in the process of truth and reconciliation. In a few short moments, we're going to officially get our festivities started. We'll have a reading from Cleopatria, straight from Growth in Small Gestures, followed by 4 poets who will each be reading a piece that is inspired by the chapbook. Then Cleopatria and I will sit down for a short but impactful interview as we talk all about this brilliant collection of short stories. We'll wrap up the evening with the recording turned off. We'll invite all of you to turn on your video if you'd like, unmute your mics, and we'll all chat, say hello, and mix and mingle as we would if we were able to meet in person. And we're so looking forward to that as well. So before we bring Cleopatria onto the virtual stage, a few house rules. We do have closed captions available, and you can turn them on by pressing the closed captions or the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen. I'm just not sure what it's called now on Zoom. Again, please stay off video and keep your mic muted until the end of the event, just so we can keep the focus on each of tonight's performers. And last but certainly not least, please use the chat as you already are to engage with our poets and authors this evening, to say hello, to cheer each other on, and just to meet everyone that's in the room. We would love to know where you are tuning in from. And of course, as I will keep plugging throughout the evening, if you have not yet had a chance to purchase your copy of Growth in Small Gestures, you can do so on our website, which I will drop the link in the chat. And we will be mailing out all of the pre-ordered copies and newly ordered copies over the weekend, which is so exciting. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Cleopatria Peterson. Cleopatria is a transgender, non-binary, multidisciplinary artist. Known for their illustrations, comic work, and zines, they are the co-founder of Old Growth Press. This is their first published chapbook, and they hope for a future where they continue to create and tell stories. Bears are their favorite animal, and they yearn to hold a raccoon's paw. You can find more of their work at www.cleopatria.ca.
Hello, hi everybody. Thanks for coming to my chapbook launch. So she is, they are, he, they can be whatever they want to be, just like me. Yeah, so I'll probably just get to reading and then we can go from there. Thank you for being here and for your time. Yeah, so I will start. So my dedication, which I think is sweet, is to the Black trans queerdos who yearn to see themselves in the world. So we will start with the sweetness of red. Just a little illustration, and I'll read a little bit from that. Okay. The thing about picking raspberries was that you had to be careful about the weight of your hands, had to be gentle about how you touched them. You had to watch for the wasps too. The same thing could be said about falling in love. And I mean, here I was saying it. You had to be careful. But the payoff? Oh, that payoff, she was sweet. Sweet and red in every goddamn shade. Now I was simple and okay with it. I like to use my hands before my brain, and that served me all right most times. That meant my mouth had free rein and I did not shut up. I tell you, my mama was right when she threatened to sew in a zipper. Would have come in handy on some days. Got me into all kinds of trouble, the kind that gets you kicked out of Sunday school. But some kinds of trouble could be good. So this is a story about a girl and raspberries and first kisses and summer heat. And gosh, I guess it's just a story about love. And it's my story, so that's why I'm telling you. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. I invited her over on our last day together at summer school. Her was Rowan. She sat beside me in the math class we were taking, and I had looked forward to it every Wednesday and Friday. I wouldn't have if she wasn't there. I tell you. I was bad at a lot of things, but math really got me by the ankles. Rowan was taking math because Rowan was new. She had always been here, but as Rowan, she was new. I liked her in her newness because she liked herself in it, and you could tell. So I invited her over, and I knew that was something folks like me just weren't supposed to do. The last person I invited over didn't really come back, but Rowan was different. I could tell. You were supposed to be ashamed of your poor luck run-down house, but I wasn't. We had a garden, and I reckon if you have a garden, you have everything you need to be happy in the world. My garden was special because my mama let me plant raspberries in it when I was 7, and I looked forward to them every year. Nothing tasted better, I tell you. They were my favorite part of that garden, and if I was going to pick one, I loved how the soil looked under my fingernails too, because it meant I'd touched God, you know? To me, God was watching the thing you nurtured grow. At least that's what my mama said about me, and I started to say it about my garden. My raspberries, strawberries, snap peas, petunias, tomatoes. I was their parent, and I was mighty proud of them and all their growing. Wait though, because I'm getting ahead of myself here, and you need to know how pretty of a picture she was. Rowan, not my garden, though she was pretty too. She was all kinds of sharp, like a good tool, cheekbones and a chin I wanted to cut my dirty fingers on, eyes like big brown almonds, and a small mouth that might be good for kissing. Oh, I hoped it was. I'd never done any kissing, but I really thought I'd like to start. She was taller than me by a lot, like a tree that was sidewalk size. You know the kind, right? Most times we were sitting, but I didn't mind having to look up at her when we were standing, which is usually when we were saying goodbye. I minded the goodbyes because I was worried that when all this math was learned, we wouldn't have any more hellos. So I asked her over. So that is from the first story, The Sweetness of Red. Thank you for listening. And now I will read from the second story in the collection, A Name for Nobody. I grew up around fairies. Everyone here did, really. This was a common thing when your whole backyard was a forest. We didn't own the forest out back because you couldn't own a forest, not for real anyways. Like, I know there were big money people who bought forests and cut them down, but they never really owned it, you know? We were lucky our small town wasn't the kind of place for that. No, we were woods first and town second, and I liked that we lived this way. To me, it was a privilege to have nature out my back door. It was also all I knew. How the kids that ran off to the city and found happiness without it, I couldn't tell you. They must have somehow. Once they left, no one really came back, not even to visit. But I'm sorry. Back to the fairies. That's the interesting part. The forest was theirs. It had been since the first tree sprouted, long before me or you, our parents or great grandparents, or even greater than them, really. You had to respect that. I mean, I grew up respecting that, and we all knew the rules. We learned them through bedtime stories, and if your parents weren't the storytelling type, you learned them from your friends or neighbors, maybe a teacher or your dentist. The rules were pretty simple. Don't step into no circles on the forest floor. If someone out there offers you food, you best not take it, no matter how hungry you are. Don't say thank you to nobody or nothing, and never, ever tell them your name. The stories would change, but the rules were always the same. We all knew about little Hallie Fafner, who left nothing but her red suede shoes beside a circle of daisies, or Neil Gorin, who went to the woods at 10 and came out 50 the next day. Those ones are my favorite, the scary ones. Every family had a story. Even if your family was adamant that there was no such thing as fairies, they still had a story. It didn't matter if you didn't believe them, because the fairies should believe in you. Before I tell you my story, I should warn you. I just about broke all those rules. If that makes you uncomfortable, I understand, and you don't gotta listen to me. So it's all about the name. Most sorts are born with one. Sometimes it sticks, but it sure didn't for me. So when I was 15, I changed it. This town was small enough that everyone knew everyone. They sure knew me before and didn't much care to know me after. It was hard, and I was desperate. You see, the whole point of this is that names have power, whether you like it or not. You come out into the world crying and screaming, and then they brand you something. Like I said before, sometimes it sticks. Sometimes you aren't that name at all, and you can change it like me at 15, but it's going to follow you like your shadow. Sometimes you'll hear it, like in passing about someone else or on the TV. Sometimes folks will use it against you. Names have power after all, and I wanted my chosen name, the one I decided just for me, to be the one that had it. But to do that, I had to get rid of the first one. And what better way to convince a whole town of folks to know you than to make a deal with a fairy? Thank you. So yeah, please buy my book. I hope you will like it. Those are just little tidbits to get you excited. There's so much more that transpires. And yeah, thank you.
That was so amazing. I'm going to clap for you, as I imagine everyone is doing at home. Oh, it's so special to get to hear you read the stories and hear them in your voice. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so shall we get our readings from our guests started?
See you later.
Later. So Cleo had a phenomenal idea of inviting fellow poets to read work inspired by the stories in Growth and Small Gestures. So I will let them and their work speak for themselves, and I will introduce our first performer. Terrence Abrahams is always a Libra and often a poet. His most recent chapbook, Notes from the Garden, was published by Baseline Press in 2019.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Tally, and Cleo. Thank you for inviting me. This is really, really great. It was so wonderful to hear you read. I'm so familiar with these stories now, but it's still amazing to hear you read them out loud. I loved it so much. So I'm going to be reading one poem for each story. So I'll start with a prose poem inspired by the first story. So it's called There Is No Verb for Us. There is no verb for us. I think in eroding. I think in climbing. I think in blooming. I think in fading. I think in sweeping. At the edge of my vision, a figure shaped out of all the words I apply to them, a solid companion, a gentle sculpture. They walk in my shadow, sit on windowsills and the edge of cabinets, a constant changing thing. In this house of verbs, I also keep a garden in my drawer, top left, near the socks, some with holes. It is green despite being tucked away. It is green with all the verbs I planted in it. It is green because and despite of the shadows. It is a garden for all the verbs I cannot hold, spilling and sewing and shaping the next sentence, tended to by the idea's shifting hands, ever new, even when I'm not there to guide its path. One day I'll find the outline of our verbs in the dirt, at rest, easing into the next sentence, and the next, and the next. This garden has never heard of the dictionary. This garden grows solely out of us and what we bring to it. Thank you. So the next poem is very short. I haven't written a short poem in a long time, so I wrote this one especially for Cleo. This one is just simply called Notes on Names. How even the slightest of familiar sounds can tilt the ear. How the uttering of it bends the shape of me into myself. How then can I carry it in my heart and not offer to share the weight? Thank you so much.
Oh, that was amazing. I have chills. My goodness. Thank you so much, Terrence. Next, I'm excited to introduce Sanna Wani. Sanna lives between Mississauga and Srinagar. Her work is available in poets.org, Poetry Daily, Brick, and more. She loves daisies.
Hi, everyone. I love Cleo. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm going to read a poem in response to the first story, The Sweetness of Red. And this is called Honey Summer Sun. A raspberry is red. Your nails are pink. That Saturday was longer than the year before it. Behind me now is the color of God in everything I've grown, another thing nurturing. The seasons departing under the roof of the sky, gap-toothed like me. The lazy rain, the clouds changing direction. A dandelion, a petunia, the snap pea flower sprouting behind my ear. Your hands turn me into a garden. In this pillowing light, your shoulder a horizon, your mouth a sky. In my life, there are friendly ghosts and hungry wasps, and both linger in the kitchen, looking for something sweet, looking for something to want. And I wonder, is there anything on this earth that could not want you? To survive, we still. To kiss, we lean in. Your lips so sweet, the fruit is jealous. A kiss so hungry, the garden groans. A warmth between us as full as each berry. A love so sticky in the honey summer sun. Congratulations, Cleo.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that was incredible. Thank you so, so much, Sanna. Okay. Next, I'm excited to introduce Yasmin Emery. Yasmin is the managing editor of Old Growth Press. She writes sometimes, works at an accounting firm most days, and lives in Takaranto.
Hello. It has been so long since I was on Zoom that I almost forgot how to unmute myself, but we have succeeded. Hello, I love you, Cleo. I love this book. I loved reading these stories as they grew, and I'm so glad it's been published. I have not written poetry in a whole minute, so this one is extra special just for you. It's based on the first story because as somebody who grew up with a raspberry bush in her backyard, that shit slaps. So, and it doesn't have a title because I don't live like that. Nothing sweeter than a wasp bite. Cicadas, that always August heat wave, berry bush thorns biting away at our hips, our hands. I never laughed like when I'm with you. I like the ones that aren't quite right. A little pink, a little mouthy. You stick to the sweet stuff. You and the hornets, and I follow deeper. Candied shadows nest humming, soft singing. Their dew-sharp stingers like your hands on my neck. A prick at my shoulder. Your mouth, the sun, and mine. I drink you up like water, like rumors, like poetry. Cool and sharp and bright. Thank you, and big ups to Cleo.
Yasmin, that was amazing. Thank you so, so much. And Cleo also mentioned in the chat that they submitted because you told them to send their chapbook to the soapbox. So thank you so, so much. Now, last but certainly not least, I'm excited to introduce Frances Tomkins. Frances is an arts administrator and sometimes poet living in Toronto. Their work has been published in Active Victoriana and Nest Journal.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Cleo, for inviting me to read today. It was so lovely to hear you read your work and all of my friends reading their work. Wow, my heart is so full. This is like a prose poem, I guess, short story, I don't know, based on both of the stories in your book. Two kids approach on bicycles from behind the houses. We're walking on a dirt path, speculating tree houses, oak roots twisting underfoot. Kid number one is tall and lanky, with close-cropped hair and skin a sun-kissed explosion of dark freckles. A black surgical mask hangs from his ears and curves around his chin like a premature beard. His wheels catch in the rocks and bump over the uneven ground. When he dumps his bike, the back wheel spins a staccato twirl. Kid number two is younger, trailing after his big brother. He eyes us with big eyes. He steers his bike with one hand and holds the hem of his t-shirt with the other. His midriff is bare as he lifts the hem to create a basket for a beating heart, dripping red through the center and onto his skin. A second glance and the beating heart is a mess of blackberries bleeding in the sun. Wasps skim across them, but the boy is fearless. He doesn't swat them. The first kid has approached us over the tree roots. He stretches out his hand, which is berry-stained around the nail beds. He opens a fist in which 6 fat blackberries rest, miraculously uncrushed. "Excuse me," he says, "have you seen any of the berry bushes?" We have not seen any of the berry bushes. We are city people. We have trouble seeing certain things. We're out here to practice. I'm taken aback by being approached. I realize it's been over 2 years since I've spoken to a child, and longer since I've eaten straight from the earth. The child's hand closes like a door, and his index finger silently extends to point behind us into the trees. We turn. It takes our eyes a few moments to adjust to the wall of green. We stargaze into the shadow of the woods. With patience, the bracken says, "Look higher," and we see them. And then more, and then more. Should we go in? Should we trudge through? We look at each other. Should we pick them? Are they safe to eat? As soon as they were here, the children are gone, their interest in us lost. Their bikes bump away. They reminded me of someone else, maybe us, from a long time ago. Follow me in, watch your step. Try not to crush too many small bodies on the way. Now our hands are stained red too. This taste is familiar. Do you remember? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frances. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to do another round of applause for our 4 incredible. Thank you, Cleo. Yes. That was so amazing. Thank you so much, Terrence, Frances, Sanna, and Yasmin. All of your poetry complemented each other so well, but we're still so different. And what a beautiful response to the chapbook. Thank you. So Cleo, are you ready for a little interview / Q&A to answer some burning questions?
Absolutely. But also I want to thank Frances, Yasmin, Terrence, and Sanna for all reading for me. I feel so held and loved for it to have that occur, and I'm so grateful. I wouldn't be right. This like book wouldn't exist without this specific group of people. I wouldn't feel like I could write words and put them out there without them. So I'm so grateful that we could kind of come full circle in this way. So thank you all. I love you very much. One day we will all live together in a very big house, and then I'll get to see you all the time and I won't have to worry about it.
Maybe if we sell enough books.
Yeah, buy the book so I can live in a house, please.
Oh. So Cleo, what inspired growth in small gestures?
That's a good question. I think what happened, for at least for the raspberry story, I always wanted to write a story about berry picking, and I think, like, I'm sure, like, years ago, like, I even was like telling Terrence about this. I just wanted, like, it was like the idea I had kind of was like a mean lesbian and like a soft lesbian and like berry picking and stained fingers or whatever. But when this came into fruition, I was like, no, like I wanted to write a happy and warm kind of story. And that's what this ended up being. And also kind of just like I really wanted to write short stories that could achieve transness and being trans without it being like, I just wanted it to be able to exist simply and plainly, without it being like it's a thing, it exists and it's important, as it is important to me and my identity. but I feel like the way that I'm writing about it is challenging the ways that we've seen it written before. I don't know if it's fair to claim that. So that's kind of how it transpired. It kind of just got to the point where it's just like, I want to see trans stories like this, so I'm gonna write them because I have to, kind of.
Thank you for writing them.
Thank
We really appreciate it. And we're so glad that you did. So I guess kind of going off of that, how did you always envision these two stories in one collection together?
No, I feel like I wanted to write more. It just also kind of worked because originally it was like pitched as like T for T, and then in my head it was like two trans stories, and then trans stories for trans people. Yeah, it was like very on the nose and on the head, and it didn't have to be that. But I have like all sorts of ideas, and I guess like if this had never been picked up, like I would have just kind of continued to write short stories and see where they would go together in a collection.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. I hope you're still writing, George.
Trying.
Okay, but that's awesome. So, okay, I'm just going to keep asking about the stories in this collection. So what made you decide to pair these two together? Were you choosing amongst others that you'd written?
These are just it. They were all I had done. They were really all I had done. And I think in a way they kind of worked. They work together. They're completely different, but nature is so prevalent in them that they managed to work together very well. So it wasn't like I didn't have to worry about the stories not meshing, like being like as a short story collection kind of grows, you have to be very careful of like the themes and stuff continuing, but they worked well together. So it kind of was like serendipitous to be able to put them out together. So yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's so cool. Well, yeah, they do work perfectly together and they complement each other in so many ways. So it's very cool that they just kind of came out at the same time. Very cool. Okay, you kind of hinted at it already by speaking of the previous title that you submitted the collection with T for T, but can you share the meaning kind of behind the title Growth in Small Gestures and how that evolved?
Yeah, it's always hard to think of a title, but I think going back to like the nature thing, like there was always some form of nature, and I think in forms of like trans identity, like always, like I don't know, we are given this idea that like you transition, that's it, but like as a person, as a human being, you're always changing, you're always growing, you're always learning, that never stops. And it is often through very small things that you achieve that. It's not like it can be through like larger incidents, but I think it's the small things that build up to make you who you are as a person. And I think what is happening in these short stories is kind of very like is telling you that in that way, like getting up the nerve to ask your crush to come over, having your first kiss, going to the forest every time, like it changing every time you're setting foot in there. Like nothing is stagnant, nothing stays the same, like everything is always growing, like even the environments that are part of the story are always growing, like the garden or the forest, etc. So yeah, I just think when it came to that, it worked perfectly. I think Terry helped me pick it as well. So thank you, Terry, who is always my sounding board for all of my ideas.
I love that so much, and it's both incredibly beautiful and very, very true, and so fitting for the collection. Okay, so Cleo, you're also an incredibly talented illustrator. For an artist, for anyone that didn't know, Cleo is the mastermind behind the beautiful cover art, and I'm also going to show the two beautiful illustrations that come before each story. This for the sweetness of red. Oh yeah, we get it on 2 screens. That's awesome. flip too far. Page 24.
Yeah.
For nobody. So stunning. So can you tell us a little bit about your process and how the illustrations, like where they came into the stories, at what point in the process? And
Yeah. I think originally, because I didn't know that I'd ever get a chapbook out of this or be published, I was like, I'll just do it myself. So like I was thinking in terms of like zine making. So a great way to get people to love your stuff is to have a good piece of art with it. And also it wouldn't feel complete to me without my art. Like that is so much a part of my process that I just like, I don't know, like it just needed to be there. And I think at least with the sweetness of red, like I started like kind of like drawing it as a comic as well. I want my work to be able to exist in a short story form, but also to be able to pull those visuals and create a comic work. It is just something that takes a lot of time. So kind of like making these color illustrations, makes me feel like this chapbook is wholly a thing that I created, which it is, which is really cool. And I'm really proud of, and thank you for like being so down for that idea. And also just like kind of like a hint that like there could always be something visual more later if I get around to not being burnt out or whatever to do it, kind of thing. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it gives a completely different feel to the collection as soon as you have the illustrations in it. And oh, just so amazing, so perfect, like what a fit. So, and you're so talented, but I tell you that I hope often enough, but probably not. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna ask a off the collection question. What is the last thing you read?
God, I'm just reading Fear Street books right now. The last Fear Street book I read, I think, was The Homecoming Queen. So I am reading New Boy, as Claire just shouted in the chat. That is what I'm reading right now. It's not completed. They're awful. They're not good. So the last good book I read was Johnny Appleseed, which I absolutely loved. It was so good, so good. But other than that, I've just been reading Fear Street books like once a day. I'm trying to get through like all 50 plus of them.
Okay, I've actually never heard of Fear Street books. I'm gonna look into them, see what you're talking about.
Oh God, I put them on.
But I see we have people here that are very familiar with what you're talking about.
They're like by R.L. Stein.
So that's not Goosebumps. That's separate.
Oh, it's like his like hot teen series. A lot more murder. Yeah, they're like what I grew up like. I would go to a Value Village and go to the used books most part, and I would like hoard all the Fear Street books. I loved reading them, and now they're like $60. So you're also funding my Fear Street collection rebuild by buying my chapbook because they all got given away. So now I'm trying to like get back all my Fear Street books. So Fear Street books in a house. That's what we're banking on here, guys. Thank you.
Easy. We can do it. Okay, awesome. Wow, I feel like I somehow passed by this in my childhood and now I have to catch up. Okay, and do you have a favorite book?
I love Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kilmer. I like finished that book and immediately wanted to read it again. Like it's just, there's so much beauty about living life and a reciprocal way with nature in it. And then We've Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I love Shirley Jackson so much. I love her crazy protagonists who are losing their minds and are not necessarily good people, but I still love them anyways. So yeah, I think more people should give Shirley Jackson some credit for the horror genre opposed to Stephen King, but that's just my opinion.
Oh, that's awesome. Such great recommendations too. All All right, and one final question, please share, if you feel so inclined, what are you working on now?
I am trying to write a novel, I guess. It happened by accident. I just wanted a trans werewolf story. And then it ended up being like 200 pages. So now it's a thing that I have to like deal with. So I am working on it. It will get there someday. Would love to be published. Yeah. But yeah, so it is basically my working title is I was a T for T werewolf. So the T for T thing comes back. And that is what I've been working on. And it's been really fun to write. It's kind of, and then I think that's what the best part is just like I consume all this werewolf media and I'm like, that's shit. And then I'm like taking that and then reworking it to what I know the genre can be. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. And me and Terry will have another chapbook out in November with Collusion, Long Con, I think. I don't know, Terry has to tell me, I forget. But we collect on like some poetry, which is going to be published, which is really fun to do.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Cleo and Terrence. That's incredible. Please keep us posted on the launch and release of that book. And your novel sounds incredible. And we are accepting full-length submissions. So whenever it's ready, you know where and how to find us.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, and we got some clarification on your upcoming chapbook. Oh, they published chapbooks written jointly by two authors. Wait, both Longcon and Collusion published chapbooks by two authors. Very cool. Learning so many new things. Well, thank you so much, Cleo. I think we all learned a little bit about you and about your phenomenal chapbook growth in small gestures. So now I'm going to say just a few closing words and then I'll turn things over to you before we start our meet and greet as a heads up for everyone. Thank you so much, Cleo, for writing this just incredible work and for allowing the Soapbox to provide it a home. We are incredibly grateful and honored to be able to have published you, and we hope that this is the first collaboration of ours of more to come.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would love that. It's been amazing to work with you all. You have given so much care to this little baby, which is now out in the world. So if you guys have manuscripts you should submit, they're amazing to work with, and all of you are so talented. So definitely submit to the Soapbox.
Thank you. And we also have to say thank you to Terrence and Sanna and Francis and Yasmin for sharing your poetry inspired by the stories and for being so warm and positive and encouraging and lovely and super duper talented. So thank you so much for joining us this evening as well. Thank you to Shelley, who was the editor for this collection and did such an amazing job and worked so hard on it. And thank you to Riley for the beautiful book design. They're both here this evening as well. And of course, thank you to everyone attending tonight for joining, for being such an incredible group. What word did I say? And for being so lovely in the chat. I'm excited to see you all in a few short moments. But before then, Cleo, final words are for you.
Oh gosh. Buy the book so I can buy a house and your street books. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Lots of familiar names and pals and friends who I love dearly. This has been great. And I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much for your support. And I hope you are all safe and well and had a great night and will continue to have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to stop the recording, and everyone, if you would like to join us and come on and say hello, please do so.